I'm not even going to explain things, man. Just nice it. That's a simple one for you if you know Toronto mans. What's up, fam? It's your boy Demuir here, purveyor of all sounds underground. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel today, where I'll be discussing the topic of when and what you should be upgrading in your studio. But before I jump into things, what I need from you is that SLC. Hit subscribe, like, comment, and more importantly, hit the notifications bell to stay in touch with the new videos that we have up and coming. All right, so spring is upon us. COVID has a light at the other end of the tunnel. Vaccinations are happening. Things are moving. Lots of positivity is in the air. But normally around this time, regardless of a pandemic or not, I know a number of you are probably thinking about, well, what and when should I upgrade certain things in my studio? So I'm just going to go through the material items that have worked for me. So my first point is a computer. I think this should be reviewed every 3 to 5 years. I'm super overdue on mine. I think I'm at the 6th year now. I'm definitely getting itchy and looking around for, other refurbs. But with the M1 chip in play, I've decided to wait another year and then I'll absolutely do an upgrade. With the rate of technology changes, I think, reviewing this every 3 to 5 years is quite reasonable. And I think depending on the things that are introduced in technology over time, it might actually accelerate this. But the whole thing about updating your computer is all of the things you got to go through with updating your plugins, all of the other pieces of software that you've purchased and might need to ensure that those work as well. It's a rather large job at the end of the day. So generally with computers, I tend to give it about a 3 to 5 year window. And of course, number 2, it's plugins. It's an obvious one to me, but the things that you should update in your plugin repertoire in terms of, staying in touch regularly, obviously to me are the ones that you use the most and quite frequently and regularly, and especially those that play a critical role in your particular workflow. So for me, that's things like Serato Sample. With UAD, I use the Pultec EQ a lot, and most recently Soothe 2. I definitely want to stay in touch with those updates. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll go right ahead and update the plugin, because I'm on a Mac, sometimes the plugin manufacturer hasn't necessarily caught up with Mac's changes, or the reverse. Apple's just done the change until the manufacturers or developers after, and people are scrambling to get caught up. So sometimes it's cool to wait, but it's also critical, if there are plugins that you use on a frequent and regular basis, that you stay in touch and make sure those are updated. Melda is another plugin that I use for dynamic EQing and also sound analysis to show me collisions in the frequency curve. And I regularly just make sure those are up to date. And actually, before I forget, of course, there's Waves Factory Track Spacer as well. Very important to me, so I stay in touch with those and just do a review every few months just to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. And point number 3 is a robust backup solution. I would say, especially if you are in the business of YouTube and podcasts and other content creation, be it mixes and streaming that you've recorded, and that content is important to you, I would actually say look at this every 2 years. Check out your disk utilization, look for other concrete backup solutions. Right now I'm looking at an off-site backup solution. Although technically I do have one, it's still something I want to explore, especially because of the things that I'm doing on my Patreon where there's a lot of video, audio, and, of course, backing up my samples as well. Introducing new gear in my studio is also a key reason why I want to make sure I have a solid backup solution. So I will look at this stuff pretty much every 2 years, because I tend to go big with, at least 6 to 8 terabyte backup solutions just rearing and ready to go, and that are also encrypted. I'm using the NAS backup solution, as I'd mentioned in previous videos. Point number 4. This one is a little bit subjective, and I'm not sure. I think it depends on who you ask, but it's to also look at your studio monitor situations. And I'd throw headphones in there as well, because there's a lot of quality studio headphone monitors available to us now with the technology that's ever evolving. So here's the thing. I used to be of the mindset that I would replace these things every 5 to 7 years, almost in the same time frame as a computer. But that leads me to another point, which is, well, you're supposed to get used to studio monitors and just know the sound. So I've kind of evolved this thinking, unless the monitors have a huge technical issue, like there's a hum or an amp blows on it, I'm not really inclined to change them straight away, especially because of SonarWorks Reference 4. Wherever I take these monitors, whatever room I put them in, and as long as I calibrate it, I know I'll have a lot of confidence in the mixing decisions I'll make. I used to be of the mindset that these things attenuate, they degrade because it's hardware, and naturally, the performance would move around. But if you are working full-time on music like I am, you become very used to those little nuances and slight changes over the years with your studio monitors, so you don't necessarily have to be too quick on the gun to replace them. And the other thing about replacing studio monitors is just the fact that you got to relearn them. Even if you have a calibration software like SonarWorks in play, it still takes some time to trust what you're hearing. You're really retraining your ears and doing things based on that analysis, and that obviously will take time. So I'm a little bit slower to the draw on monitors. I'd say your timeline's a bit lengthier, and only replace them unless there's some huge technical issue or there's some other advantage being offered with a new pair that you're just not getting today. And point number 5 is software, obviously, but I'm going to point out the critical pieces of software. So your DAW or DAW is an obvious one. Your operating system is another one, and I would put these at a 1 to 2 year timeline depending on the extent of changes. With my operating system from Apple, I'm never too quick to do that. It's about a 2 to 3 year cycle in the most extreme cases. And with the DAW, I generally tend to just go ahead and update that, as well as SonarWorks, because they're usually quite vetted. But it's important to read the release notes. I'm not saying read the whole thing. Normally they have, the material changes highlighted, and then you make the best decision for you. But at the rate of changes that I go through, it's every 1 to 2 years where I'm making these updates. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on when and what you should upgrade in your studio. Let me know your thoughts about this one. I usually join the conversation within 48 hours of posting these videos, so I'd love to see and hear what you got to say about this one. And also remember, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. We've passed an important milestone on our Discord page, where there's a lot of other aspiring and like-minded DJs and producers who are sharing tips and having lots of valuable conversation on my Discord page. So it's really cool. You should check it out. Much love and respect to you. Peace.